Today's parents are wary of the so-called heavy metal music.
Salut à tous, METALXS, c'est l'essentiel de l'actualité métal et dérivé en quelques minutes, le tout en images, en musique et en interview. METALXS est une exclusivité Refix by Crédit Mutuel, la plateforme de toutes les musiques, tous les talents en partenariat avec Artforce. C'est parti! Après un été passé à vous présenter l'édition 2024 du Hellfest, METALXS fait sa rentrée avec l'un des plus gros poids lourds de sa génération, Deep Purple. Nous avons rencontré l'un des chanteurs qui ont posé les fondations du métal et du rock, Gillan. De passage à Paris, la légende vocale qui interprétait il y a plus de 50 ans Smoke on the Water, Child in Time, Black Knight, Strange Kind of Woman ou encore Highway Star nous a accordé une interview à l'occasion de la sortie du 23e album de Deep Purple, Equals One. Le guitariste Steve Morse a beaucoup contribué à ce Deep Purple marque de près de 30 ans. Mais son choix de quitter le groupe pour des raisons personnelles était totalement compréhensible, sûrement difficile étant donné la relation qu'ils entretenaient, mais ils ont tous accepté sa décision. Ce nouveau disque marque les débuts de Simon McBride au sein de Deep Purple. Qu'a-t-il particulièrement apporté à l'équation?
You know, about human chemistry is so complex, it's almost impossible to explain in advance until something happens and you go, oh, it's happened. It's like a football team, they change one player and everything changes. So I think what happened is that Simon is a completely different player. You can't evaluate who's better or worse. They were from different backgrounds and they have different styles and different personalities. Steve's background was in Southern American rock and jazz rock, and so the music, his influence on the band in that aspect made it, I think, probably more experimental than we had been for quite a while. We went on different journeys musically, and songs became fascinating in the musical content. I've always thought Deep Purple is primarily a musical band, and Steve Morse's tenure with the band illustrates that more than anything. But when Simon came in, his approach is more direct, and he has more what we call the attitude, if you like, of the rock of the 60s and 70s of England and London and Liverpool, and he's from Northern Ireland, but they have the same attitude, and his influences were a generation later, so he didn't grow up with Smoke on the Water, or although he probably heard it once or twice, but he grew up with Gary Moore and people like that, you know, and he's an impeccable musician, and his articulation is what is required. I mean, at the very highest level, the very highest level of expression and articulation, and he fits in very well too. He's a road hog like the rest of us, and so I think probably when we sat down for the first writing session, it was very natural. There was no contrivance, and he brought the best out in the other guys. Our rhythm section was born in '69, and as it is when Roger and Ian first started working together, with of course the keyboards and the guitar are all part of the rhythm section when they're not soloing. So that element all came back again from the journey we'd been on with Steve Morse, and everything was electric. It just, I mean, it was amazing. I was sitting in the room and I had goosebumps. It was so exciting. And so yes, it was organic. That's the only answer I can give you, truly organic, in every way, personality and musically.
À l'écoute de Equals One, des sentiments prédominent, ceux de jeunesse, de vigueur et d'endurance. Deep Purple n'avait pas sonné comme ça depuis des lustres. Est-ce entièrement dû à Simon?
Well, obviously, Simon is the catalyst. So, I mean, if the rest had not responded, it wouldn't have worked. But Simon was the catalyst for that reversion to that, you call it youthful. I think, well, thank you very much. That's a great compliment. But I think the energy levels came up again, and the directness. The arrangements became simplified. Even though I noticed something in Nashville many years ago that, you know, as we go through our journey in life and people get better and better and better, they tend to want to play better and better. But the side effect of that is they get a bit more complicated and perhaps a little bit more remote from people who just want to hear something simple and enjoy the groove, you know, rather than the head stuff. And in Nashville, they understand the principle that simplicity is a great platform for virtuosity. And I think that's come back into the band. That's what Purple was always about in the early days. The way we wrote. Purple's always been primarily an instrumental band. That's where the music comes from. I sort of ride the pony and get on board halfway through. I think the energy levels are youthful. If they sound youthful, then I take that as a compliment. But the energy and not only the focused energy, the cohesion, the feeling that we're all on the same side. We're not trying to compromise, we're not trying to improvise to make it work, over complicating the arrangements to make it a dodgy song sound good, you know. So everything fitted in very nicely. So yeah, energy.
That'll do. Maybe I can gather up the troops. Donald?
You're back.
Into your cage, please.
Equals One est aussi le 5e album produit par Bob Ezrin en 10 ans environ. Comment Ian définit-il l'essence même de sa relation et de sa confiance lorsqu'ils travaillent ensemble?
Well, someone said, well, is he a team member? And I thought, well, my first reaction was, yes, of course he is. But in actual fact, he's not a team member. He's a manager, like a football team. The manager's not in the team. He's there guiding it and helping with arrangement and the finishing touches. And that's what Bob's done. Deep Purple, the musicians have always been very capable and but there was never a real leader in the band, and so in order to be polite, we would debate arrangements for days on end. Oh, how about an extra? Oh, let's try this, and let's try. Oh, you know, maybe we should change, modulate here, or maybe we can do with a change of rhythm, or maybe there should be 24 bars instead of, or maybe we should break the solo into 2 sections, do another bridge in the middle, and oh my God, you know, goes on, and nobody wants to upset anyone, so we try everything, and in the end, please, let's move on to the next song. Bob comes in and he goes, I'm not liking that. That's great. Let's do it that way. And in 5 minutes, it's done. And because he has stature, experience, he's a great musician himself, and a record of amazing success. And what I like most of all, he gets the best sound we've ever had. So all of those things together make him he's the catalyst for, I think, a big turnaround in Deep Purple's approach to making records, and consequently the live show as well. Now Simon's in, things have changed a little bit too. But Bob's a significant figure in our career.
L'album oscille entre deux approches old school et plus modernes, avec des arrangements typiques de la touche d'Ezrin. Il y a de l'ADN pur de Deep Purple à l'intérieur, tandis que certaines chansons sont plus aventureuses. L'expérience dans son ensemble ressemble vraiment à la démonstration parfaite de ce qu'est Deep Purple, adapté à 2024.
Well, thank you so much for saying that, because one of the biggest problems we've ever had in our history, because of the diversity of the influences in the formative years of the musicians in the early, when the band was, the ethos of the band, with influences in rock and roll, in classical composition, in jazz, big band swing, folk music, soul, funk. It was all there from the 5 guys in the band in '69. And so it's been a little bit more complex, and the identity of the band, I think, always came from the unique nature of the songs, which, as you mature and go through the years, you perhaps get away from the picture a little bit, and with a change of personnel sometimes you come back, it's not quite the same. And you think of things when you're 30, 40, 50 years old differently to when you're 20 years old, completely. It's embarrassing to sort of write about those things that you thought about when you were 20. You look at things a little more philosophically, but they still have to be exciting. So what do? You write perhaps more about, you write stories that are intriguing and that have the melodies and the vocals have to fit. There's got to be all the percussive value in the delivery. I think the journey has been incredible. To pin a label on Deep Purple has always been unsatisfactory. It's, you know, you accept it for what it is, and you've been through all of that, and you call a hard rock band, you call heavy rock, you call heavy metal, you call classic rock, excuse me, and you know, if you want a tombstone hanging around your neck, call yourself a classic rock band. And so on and so on, and things come in and out of fashion, and all of a sudden you're not aligned with that particular movement, and so you're old hat or this, that, and the other. But it doesn't mean to say you've stopped progressing, or you've stopped thinking, or you stopped working hard on your music. You go in and out of fashion. I think the best thing Deep Purple ever did, although it has proved difficult at times, was to insist back. I remember the meetings we talked about. We must avoid at all costs being fashionable. This is really important, because if we're fashionable today, that means by definition tomorrow we're unfashionable. So we mustn't think about that. We must produce the music from within. It's got to be organic, it's got to be nature, and we'll live with it. We'll live with that. We don't listen to outside for influences. We don't have pre-conceptual ideas. We just do what we can do as good as we can, and then pray people like it. That comes afterwards. The prayers come afterwards. So I don't know about labels. It's very difficult. And then of course if you say, well, we're not this and we're not that and the other, and people go, oh yeah, okay, well, who are you? You know, well, we're just who we are. You know, I think if you look back at to a certain element, the labels have become a device for marketing, for more, perhaps in the first instance for media, and then the bands have tailored themselves to that shape. You know, particularly the heavy metal, the death metal, the speed metal, and all that sort of thing. And the imagery is, I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, it's wonderful. But I think you know, we're not known for our clothes. And we're not known for our haircuts, maybe when we were young, but we don't try and be fashionable. And I think, I look back and I think, you know, I was talking to somebody and they said, oh, show me the first track on the album. They said, I love that guitar riff, it's pure 70s hard rock. I said, yeah, maybe if you have to put a label on it, which I don't think you need to do, just take it for what it is. But I'd say that would fit perfectly on a Small Faces album. That ding, 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 you know, the way that kicks off. And what would you call them? A pop rock band, you know. They were one of my favorite bands of all time. They were fantastic. Small Faces and the Kinks, they didn't form part of any movement. In those days, they just called them pop groups, you know, and nothing wrong with that. It just depends on what kind of pop group, you know. So to be popular is a good thing. So labels are labels, you know, and you've got to live with it.
On est très impressionné par la force d'un morceau comme A Bit on the Side. vigoureux et inspiré, ou du chant presque hystérique de Gillan sur le très hard rock Now You're Talking.
Hysterical, yeah. I love it. Now You're Talking, there was, I'm also still, even now, touched by little sparks in the back of my head, influences, when I hear the guys start to play something I can almost relate it to another piece of music when I was a kid. A bit on the side, for example, the first thing that came to mind was Mose Allison, Parchman Farm. And it's almost impossible to relate that to how it ended up, but that was my trigger. And Now You're Talking, when I heard the guys playing it, I had this sense of complete abandon. It's pure expression of the joy of playing, a simple structure. And what came to mind was Jerry Lee Lewis, A Whole Lot of Shaking, and the live version from his Hamburg album. He just goes on, and it's relentless and relentless. And so I had this, and the lyrics were just a fun thing of this sort of thing that happens at every party. You know, people get drunk and behave badly. So that's an easy, you can write 100 songs about that and all the different characters you've met over the years. And so that's a classic format. But yeah, and the best songs are written in 10 minutes, you know, I think.
Après des titres bizarres tels que Now What ou Whoosh, Deep Purple en propose un autre de taille, Equals One. Incarne-t-il un quelconque concept d'unité?
Yes, I think so. You know, we have to, if things become contrived, you can smell it's artificial. If things are overproduced, it means the song's not very good. You're putting all the production values to the front, and underneath this, well, where's the song? You know, or where's the good stuff? And so it might sound very impressive, but hasn't got the meat. It's a particularly significant time in the history of Deep Purple, with Simon leaving and with Steve leaving and Simon replacing him, and the cathartic effect that had on the rest of the guys in the band. You know, human nature is so complex that it just takes that and the whole balance changes. And it's not just what Simon brought in, it's what he released, the pent-up feeling in the rest of the guys who just went, oh yeah, let's do it. And the whole thing became like that again. And everything became easy. And when it's easy, it's like if you're an athlete, if you're relaxed, you perform better.
Nous savons tous que nous vivons dans une époque différente, mais pense-t-il que ce nouvel album pourrait devenir un classique et être inscrit parmi les plus belles œuvres de Deep Purple en vieillissant?
Well, it's not for me to say what. I'm not avoiding the question because it's always difficult to be objective about stuff like this. We're so wrapped up in the middle of it. But if I can step back, I would say yes. But that's only because I've shared it with other people in the stages of evolution of the record, and people are going, "Oh, it sounds fresh. It sounds important again. It has gravitas." And so, with those things in mind, yes, it probably could. In my opinion, it's the best record we've made since Machine Head.
We all came out to Montreux on the Lake Geneva shoreline.
Juste après avoir enregistré un album en particulier, a-t-il ressenti au fond de lui qu'il allait probablement changer la donne pour le groupe et devenir une étape importante dans l'histoire du rock, ou a-t-il toujours été surpris par le statut de classique qu'ont obtenu un grand nombre de leurs chansons?
I don't know. I don't know. It's a dangerous game to play. I think I don't really look outside the band very much. You know, in the early days of your music, you go through so many disappointments, so much hunger, so many failures, not of your fault, just because circumstances weren't right, you weren't in the right place at the right time. But you keep pounding away, and the music is everything. And if you're with the right company and the musicians, you develop a strength, and you can transfer that strength to other musicians who understand, have been the same route, and have a common background, if you like, not necessarily common music, but an understanding of what it takes to put everything to one side and just be musical. What that results in, if you have success, is I had a manager back in the 60s. I got offered a job. I was with a band called Episode 6, which was a harmony group, a pop group, harmonies. And I got offered a job with a new vaudeville band who had a hit record in America, #1 record, called Winchester Cathedral. And there's a guy singing to a microphone, Winchester Cathedral, yeah, da, 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 da. And they offered me, there was all session players on the record, so they offered me the job, £100 a week, and all expenses paid. 3-month tour of America. Woohoo, sounds good to me. And she said, well, look, you're still developing. You're writing, you're performing, your identity. This is good money, and most people would accept the job. I just want to make you think about one thing, that if you do this, this is what you'll be remembered for the rest of your life. That's what people will, that's how people are. That's how they don't want you to do different things. They don't want a different kind of person. So think very carefully before you take this job, and think about it for a few days. Look, if you achieve success doing what you really believe in, it's the best kind of success there is. If you don't succeed doing what you really believe in, it's okay. Music can be a great friend, and you can still love what you're doing. If you achieve success doing what you don't believe in, it's not very fulfilling, and it's very short-lived. And if you fail at doing something you don't believe in, it's the worst kind of failure. And I said, okay, I don't want the job. No thanks. So that kind of that kind of wisdom are the things you pick up along the road, together with the hard nights that you put in the nightclubs and playing 5 shows a night and that sort of thing. And when you mix with people from similar backgrounds, you go through that. You don't tend to listen so much to what the critics say, and to be honest, what the fans say, because, I mean, even now when you get YouTube, for example, I remember doing a show in Germany, a solo show with an orchestra. It was a disaster. It was in a mining facility, huge machinery. It was like science fantasy kind of background. Ferropolis, it was called, in Germany. They have big festivals there sometimes. It was a disaster. It was raining, and they sold no tickets. It should have held 20,000 people. There were 200 or 300 there. The promoter put the seats a long way from the stage. There was no cover on the stage. There were no monitors. There were no lights. Just one white light on the stage. One caravan for me. Nothing for the orchestra or the musicians. The rain was coming down. We reached half-time. Everything was terrible. They're all sheltering under the stage, wet with their instruments. I'm sitting naked in my caravan. My PA comes in. My clothes I'm drenched. She said, oh, they're making a fortune out there. She's joking. They're selling ponchos. Look, I bought one for you. It's like they have at Niagara Falls when you get on the boat, and they're just transparent plastic ponchos. I said, that's what I'm wearing on stage for the second half of the show. So she said, I dare you. I said, okay, I will. So I walked out naked on the stage, apart from this plastic poncho, which was transparent. And the orchestra got up and they realized what was going on, and they started playing with fire. And we had just the most wonderful time, because we were laughing at the rain, we were laughing at the circumstances. And the audience all got out of their seats. There weren't many of them, and they all came to the front of the stage, and suddenly we were all entwined in this thing. Somebody took a film of it on their camera, and it went up on YouTube that night. Around midnight, the phone started ringing. My manager, what do you think you're doing? And then the Deep Purple manager comes on. What is he doing, destroying the reputation of the... And so I said, well, actually, if you were there, you would have understood. But this camera recorded things, the sound and the vision was out of sync because of the distance. The lighting was horrible. The orchestra was all out of tune because of the rain. And it sounded like a cacophony of absolute nonsense. But if you were there, you understood the circumstances. And it was Sally, my PA, who had said, Ian actually saved the day. If you hadn't been there, you would. If you just watched it on YouTube, you'd think this is the worst thing that ever happened. But in actual fact, it was one of the best experiences of my life.
Ian est évidemment l'un des rares pionniers de ce qui allait devenir la culture hard rock et heavy metal. Reconnaît-il son rôle dans cet univers fou et coloré ? Après tout, n'est-il pas le maillon essentiel entre le Elvis Presley qu'il adorait jeune et Slipknot ?
I'm humbled. I'm absolutely humbled. I'm constantly surprised that I played any part in this. I've been lucky as anything. But yes, I'm told frequently that I played my part in all this, and so it's a great honor. And but I don't think too much about it because I'm still having fun.
C'est un 10e album particulier que Nightwish a publié ce 20 septembre. Sophistiqué, aux valeurs humanistes résolument optimistes, Yes the Wind a aussi pris 4 années à son élaboration en 5 lieux différents. Il a dû s'adapter à sa chanteuse Floor Jansen et à des moments clés de sa vie, ballotté entre les soins contre un cancer et la naissance de son second enfant. C'est aussi le premier album des Finlandais depuis le départ de Marko Hietala et l'arrivée de Jukka Koskinen, le nouveau bassiste. Pour toutes ces raisons et peut-être d'autres encore, Nightwish a décidé de laisser cet album vivre sans support d'une tournée. Un choix que les fans doivent accepter et que les médias sont amenés à ne pas questionner. En revanche, interroger Tuomas Holopainen sur la manière d'avoir écrit cet album qui ressemble à une œuvre monumentale découpée en 12 titres, ça, il y répond volontiers, avec ce petit flegme qu'il a toujours caractérisé.
I started doing the songs in early 2021 because suddenly I realized that I have all the time in the world in my hands because of the pandemic. The previous album, Human Nature, had been released just a bit more than half a year earlier, so I quickly dove into the new one and used the whole of that year to create these 12 songs. And I didn't have any preconception of what the songs should sound like. I'm a big believer in flow of mind and just letting things come out as they want to come out. I do remember that I was highly inspired at that time. I had found these great stories I wanted to tell, like the Children of Ata, the Antikythera mechanism, some slightly more personal stuff. And at some point I just realized that this feels like a continuation to Human Nature, so I think we have a trilogy in our hands soon.
À l'occasion de cette sortie, Nightwish a utilisé des clichés du pionnier de la photographie britannique, Francis Meadows Sutcliffe, un élément graphique qui fascine le musicien.
I find old black and white photos and films really magical, especially when you put them through coloring. The best example of this is Peter Jackson's film, They Shall Not Grow Old, which is just unbelievable. When you see this old material colored, it's like another time, another universe comes to you as if it was shot yesterday. And it's a powerful emotion. It's like connects us with the past in the most powerful way. And I found that idea really inspiring, and that's how the word Yesterwind was born. And at some point I realized that this album has to do mainly with time and memories and mortality. Those are the major themes. Throw in a little bit of humanity and celebration of human life. We got permission to use those Sutcliffe photos from the museum. We had about, 50, 60, 70 of them. And each band member then picked their favorite, and we were installed into the photo digitally. And I think it's a brilliant idea, and there's something deeply magical in those images. Just imagine what those people in those photos would think now if they knew where they were. It's fascinating, and it's also a wonderful reminder to us that things are in many ways so much better today than 100 or 200 years ago. And this is also one of the core elements of Yesterwind. It's that we want to remind people that despite all the horrific things that are going on in the world today, there's still reason to be optimistic. And I do think human species will prevail, because at our core we are an altruistic and a good species.
Yesterwind est-il un album conceptuel?
It's not so clear, it's pretty ambiguous, as all art should be. But there's like themes that are being repeated, and all the songs somehow connect to these themes that I just mentioned: time, memories, mortality.
Le second titre, An Ocean of Strange Islands, fait écho à l'illustration de la pochette de l'album. Une composition remarquable avec deux temps forts mélodiques et une œuvre épique de près de 10 minutes.
Originally the song was even longer. I had to edit it a little bit because it felt a bit contrived. But to tell that story that we wanted to tell, it required all those different parts, and it's all over the place. But it's all over the place for a reason. It's a song about human beings, really, the different meetings we have through our few decades in the sun.
Tuomas est depuis toujours le maître d'œuvre des albums de Nightwish, que ce soit dans l'écriture, les arrangements et la production. Est-il facile de laisser de la place aux autres dans le processus créatif d'un album comme celui-ci?
Yeah, it's such a cohesive group who thinks the same way about music and about life values altogether. So it was pretty easy, and well, actually really easy. And I always want to leave a lot of room into the songs when I write them for the other band members to bring in their own personalities, their own ideas. It's vital that you can hear everybody's what they're doing there, and that's what was accomplished on this album as well. Jukkis, being the new member, it's the first album that he played the bass in and did it absolutely beautifully. Just the right notes in the right places. His style of playing is actually quite different from Marco's, but we took the best of it and just the perfect match to the band and the music.
Autre caractéristique de Yesterwind, le fait d'avoir été conçu, enregistré et produit en 6 endroits différents, en Finlande, en Suède et en Angleterre. Cela a-t-il compliqué les choses?
In this era, everything is portable anyway, so it's no problem at all. We started off from PETRAX Studios in Hollola, southern Finland, recording the drums there. Then went back to Kitee to record guitars, basses and keyboards there. Then, because Floor had just had her second child, she was in no condition to travel, so me and our engineer Tero flew over to her home studio.
It was really sad that I missed the rehearsals by not being able to join because of my pregnancy and heavy fatigue after too intense work. So everything now got recorded before me, and as soon as I was physically able to record after my pregnancy, I did, and we even did that at my home studio. So Finland came to Sweden, to the Dutchie living in Sweden. So my home studio here with my husband Hannes, we used that and managed to, really record everything in no time, I have to say. The female body goes through quite the process with pregnancy and delivering a baby. So I thought it was pretty exciting to record an album so soon after all of that, and feel very proud how well it went. The voice was just there, and the songs are absolutely amazing. So they just invite for good singing, but that doesn't mean it just works. I'm no machine. So it felt really, really good to feel everything come together and the voice just being there and the songs coming alive like this again.
It was an unbelievable week because we had reserved 12 days for her vocals. We thought one song per day would be like a good pace, and we were done after 6 days. So hats off to her. Super. I truly think this album is her best vocal performance yet, ever. It's so incredible.
I don't think I ever sang as fast. So much lyrics, really important lyrics. You cannot just mumble them, they have to come out just right. That's when the oxygen comes in. And also there were a few really, really high notes. And I'm known for my high singing, but this definitely brought it again to a level it's like, yeah, that's really on the edge of what I can do, which I love because then I get really, really properly challenged. And there are several occasions where I sing quite low. And I've always felt that something is missing from my voice if I sing low. You miss certain power. But I don't know if it's the age or the song or a combination of me maturing and the songs just asking for that kind of a sound in my voice, and where I thought it sounds like me singing low, now it just brings out a warmth in my voice that I don't think I brought out that much yet.
And then we went to Abbey Road Studios for the orchestras and choirs. And then another 5 months of mixing in Helsinki.
Le mixage de l'album a d'ailleurs fait l'objet d'une version Atmos qui a été présentée récemment aux médias dans les studios Finvox.
It sounds unbelievably good. It's incredible. And it's not only me saying it, everybody who has heard it, it's like, wow. So I'm really excited it to be released as well. And we're also doing an Atmos mix from the orchestral version of the album, which is going to be something very special for a very selected few, but it's going to be interesting as well.
Il nous révèle sa façon de travailler une chanson.
I'm a strong believer in, like I already mentioned, flow of mind and just truly concentrating on the essence of the song, the music, the melodies, the riffs at first. Don't give much thought for the samples or the sounds or the structure of the song, any of that. And the way I work at home is that when I come up with something interesting that I think might have potential, I record it with my dictaphone like an ancient piece of crap. That sounds horrible. And then during the evening I might go outside and have a smoke or something, and then I listen to the ideas from the dictaphone. And if I still get the goosebumps listening to this device here, it tells me that there's strong potential, and I continue from there. The same thing when you record a demo, you should never put too much effort into the first demo, because it's the classic line when you're recording the actual album, it was so much better on the demo, the first demo, and you hear that all the time and it's super annoying. The Children of Ata is the biggest positive surprise on the album for me personally. When I wrote the song, I thought it had potential and I enjoyed it quite a bit, but I didn't think that it would become an instant favorite. And almost everybody that has heard the album, they bring up this song for some reason, so it must have some kind of special magic in it. It's based on a real life story from 1965 about a group of children from Tonga, the South Pacific island, who got marooned on a desert island and spent 15 months there, taking care of each other in almost perfect harmony. They built a guitar, they built a badminton court there. It's just like the real life version of the well-known Lord of the Flies book, which has a completely different outcome. But there's a big lesson to be learned here somewhere when you read the story of the Children of Ata, that we can get along as human species. We have these wonderful Tongan singers bringing that South Pacific vibe into the song. They were also recorded at Abbey Road.
Comment sait-il faire la part des choses quand il compose pour attribuer telle chanson à Nightwish ou à l'un de ses nombreux projets parallèles comme Ori, Darkwood's My Betrothed ou encore l'album solo sorti il y a 10 ans autour du personnage Picsou?
Oh, you just feel it, I guess. I don't know.
Pretty simple.
Yeah. Best things are.
2024 est marqué par le 20e anniversaire de l'album Once, qui avait été un tournant pour Nightwish, mais ne semble pas accompagné d'une édition spéciale. Cela fait-il partie des projets de Nightwish?
Maybe at its 30th anniversary. Who knows, yeah. But it's a classic album. It's the one that really lifted us to a different level, and I have really fond memories about that album, recording it the latter part of 2004, the European tour with the Sonata Arctica. It was good times, really good times, and I really still like that album. Something happened during that year. Also the fact that we signed with Nuclear Blast to a bigger label. They had a massive promotional plan. Also the zeitgeist was right for us back then, so many things came together before and after the Once album. Yeah, I really remember those times with warmth, 2003, 2004.
Sur la pochette de Yes to Wind, il est mentionné le soutien de Nightwish au World Land Trust, l'organisation environnementale britannique. Tuomas nous en explique les contours.
We started our collaboration already before the previous album, Human Nature. I found them through a video clip by David Attenborough, because he's one of the founders, and just felt like the perfect match for Nightwish to finally do some visible charity. They're just buying land all over the world and preserving it. So it's very transparent what they do, and that's what we as a band really like, that we can instantly see where our effort and our donations go, and we get concrete results immediately. And they're just lovely people in the organization as well.
Tuomas est très attaché à la notion de racine, puisqu'il revient toujours sur ses terres pour élaborer ses albums. Il lui est arrivé parfois aussi de jouer dans sa ville natale, non sans une certaine émotion. Ce fut le cas le 16 juin 2023, pour l'avant-dernière date que Nightwish a donnée.
Yeah, it was, hold on, 1, 2, 3, fourth time that we ever played in Kite, my hometown. The previous time was the Once album release party, so it was more than 20 years in between. And super exciting. Everything went so well. Weather was beautiful. It was packed. And I remember at one point, while on stage, I realized that I can almost see the very first studio where we recorded the first Nightwish demo in 1996. It was about half a mile from the stage, and I thought, now 27 years later, here I am, and there's the studio, and everything that's happened in between is just unbelievable. And it made me quite misty-eyed, this thought, this fact, what we have been able to accomplish. So, yeah, definitely one of the highlights of the whole career of the band for me that night.
Sans poser la question frontalement à Tuomas, puisqu'un communiqué officiel avait balayé la question d'une tournée de Nightwish pour cet album, a-t-il néanmoins d'autres plans personnels pour les prochains mois?
Yeah, the idea is to record another Après album later this year, early next year, and then we're gonna also have a tour sometimes in 2025. We'll see what happens, but it's gonna be European-wide.
Yes the Wind est une œuvre que chacun aura le temps de savourer, en attendant que Nightwish écrive le chapitre suivant de son histoire, dont lui seul connaît la teneur. Voilà, METALXS, c'est terminé pour aujourd'hui. On se retrouve dans 15 jours pour un nouveau numéro avec toujours plus d'interviews, de surprises et de contenus inédits. Un immense merci pour votre fidélité et n'oubliez pas de prolonger l'expérience métal sur riffix.fr. Salut!